KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're
the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack!
Every week it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's in stereo again. Last week was mono.
I know
Last week was mono, right?
Left channel only.
Yes, I know.
We missed you last week.
Well, thank you very
were
much.
off
I
seeing
missed
the Mouse in the Magic Kingdom.
Absolutely. I
Are you
missed the
kidding?
crew, but
We had a gorgeous co-host. We didn't miss him at
That's
all.
true.
that is true.
Yeah, so Teresa, if you're listening out there, we really appreciate you coming out.
Yes.
And so anyway, so we've got a great show today.
We have a great show today.
And
We
we've
do.
got some great guests.
We have some incredible guests as usual.
And some of them I've been trying to get on for a very long time.
That is correct, and we have a two-timer also in the studio.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you are. Renee, you're now a two-timer.
Not literally.
You have to love that reaction.
I'm glad this is radio because if you'd have seen the look on my face just then.
What? How dare you?
Actually, as part of the Rat Pack, though, we have our special guest. We have our two-timers. We have our three-timers. And Teresa's actually one of our four-timers, isn't she?
Well, she was
Well,
guest host last week.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
So she's the only three-timer that we've had on the show.
Yes.
We can
And
fix
she's
that.
only
And
one
it-
of a couple co-hosts.
That is correct. That is absolutely
guest
correct.
host, I should
and
say.
then
Right,
Renee,
host.
you're one of only a couple of two-timers.
That's right. A
I
handful.
love the label.
Yes.
Love the label.
Well, I was out trolling
Two-time
at
and Rat Packer.
women's boutiques, and I happened to, run into Renee there, and she was serving me some mimosas and things like that. And I said, "Well, come on to the show." So I
Yeah,
thought,
because
I'm trolling for guests. Again.
Yes.
yeah, Rob's just out touring women's boutiques.
Yes.
And
'Cause
shout
that's
out
what
to
we do when we
shout
don't
out to
have anything
Marlo
to do.
Miller there. How are you? Good morning. So yeah, Rob came by and said, "Hey, why don't you come on the show?" And I was like, "Thank you very much."
Yes, and because you fit perfectly in the show today, because we're going to talk about working with custom builders and builders. in
That is
general.
correct. One of the things is we always talk about, the most obvious things. And one of the things we forget to talk about sometimes is what is sometimes most obvious. People want to hear, how do you work with a custom home builder? How do you work in defining how to find one? How do you work in what maybe some of the selections, the criteria, et cetera, out there are?
Wanted to jump in real quick.
Please do, because we have
Yes.
another guest here. That
We have
has
another
something
guest.
important to talk about.
Very important to talk about. The Rat Pack is very big on charities and supporting charities. And
Absolutely.
A special guest just made it into the studio. Kids were keeping her late, but she made it on time, right as the opening of the
buzzer
show
went
was,
off, yes.
right as the buzzer was going off. Very special guest, Miss Chau Nguyen.
Thank you. I represent the women's home, but I used to work in TV news, so it's so nice to be in radio because you can just roll out of bed, right? And just not have makeup on and your hair's all a mess. So thank you so much, Joe.
I didn't get that memo.
And
Joe
he's
puts
all
on
dressed
makeup
up
every
for
day.
the radio. That's how I looked at him. I was like, "You're all dressed up. Nobody's seeing you, right?"
We have to be the only radio show in town where we wear tuxedos. Nobody ever sees it.
And it's a Saturday morning. But anyways, thank you so much for having us. We're so honored to be part of this. The Women's Home is a charity that's been around for almost 60 years. We help women in crisis. We transform their lives. And Joe actually spoke to our ladies yesterday for a brown bag luncheon. They loved you, Joe. You are quite the charmer.
Thank you. That was very sweet.
Well, how much did you pay for it?
Yeah, I was going to say, that was
Gonna
like
get
a
an
great
invoice.
intro for $20. That was not bad. So,
Cheap date.
well, each month, Chris and I work together to sponsor a charity. And Mr. Kelso, a portion of every loan he closes goes to support a charity. And each month I host an event called RPM, which is for the real estate community, called Real Estate Professionals Mixer. And we support a charity.
Like Rob doesn't.
Rob doesn't do jack.
Rob's out promoting both of us.
Rob actually works with the charity directly, much like Chau here. So she's the community. What is your official title with the?
Well, I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed social worker, but I do the community outreach, and I'm
Yes.
the manager of community involvement. So with events like this and third-party events, we are so honored to be a beneficiary charity. So thank you, Joe.
You bet. So we just wanted to give some awareness to the Women's Home, and it's a wonderful organization doing some fantastic work and getting people back out into life and back on a
Here's
positive
always an
track.
important question is how do people get involved, and if they want to make a donation, how do they do that? So if you can give us some contact information.
Yeah, please.
Well, please find us on the website. We're at www.thewomens'home.org. There are so many ways you can get involved. You can volunteer. You can be a brown bag speaker just like Joe. You can give back by going to special events. So many ways. Contact me personally. I'm on the website with a link to my email address, but it's a great organization to get connected. We really do help women, and we feel that when you help women in crisis to transform their lives, to get back into the community, you're helping your community, your families, and really everybody at large.
Absolutely. And this month, our RPM mixer for all the real estate professionals that listen to the show, all 5 of you.
Well, they're not awake
There's
yet.
3 or 4 here, so
yeah. So that's half the crowd right there. This month at RPM, Thursday at the Fish in the Knife, Chau Nguyen will be there with the organization, and we'll be raising funds. So you guys come on out and bring your wallets.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't just bring your wallet, bring some cash.
Yeah, bring your
Yes.
heart. Honestly, just bring your hearts. I mean, get to know the organization, even if you don't donate. I'll be there to talk about what we do and the things we do in our communities. So, and we really look forward to meeting everybody this Thursday.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and being here right on time.
Yes.
And I guess we got to move on.
I would agree. You know, it's always good. It's a great way to start off the day, though, talking about one of the great charities we're supporting for this month. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And now I've got to run to the zoo and meet my family.
You have a good day at the zoo.
So she can say she's been to the zoo twice today.
That's right.
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Well, you know, to my left right here, we actually have Renee Davy Oakum. She
Yes.
is back, as we mentioned. She is a second-time guest
And
of ours.
she is with Berkshire Hathaway
And
Home
she is with-
Services, Anderson Properties.
That is correct. That is a mouthful, but a great mouthful to have.
It
Yes.
is. It is. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Our
And,
pleasure.
Of course, Renee, you have relationships with builders and representing them, and I know you have a great list, and I pass it probably every day over in memorials. Talk a little bit about working with custom home builders and things that you see and things that people need to know, and tell me the whole story.
The whole story. Well, in a nutshell, I think that when you're working with a custom home builder, when you have a client, you need to fit the builder to the client. You know, there are so many phenomenal builders in Houston and the greater area, but you need to fit your clients with a builder so that in planning the home, they get exactly what they're looking for. It's a long-term relationship, very long-term relationship when you're building a home.
Yeah, longer than some of my dating relationships. Really, it's like 9 months, and so
It can be. You know, and speaking of that, though, also you also have to define a good builder for the area because if I'm not mistaken, you've got in Houston, you've got, you know, your acre properties, you have within the Memorial, you have villages, you have some historical districts.
Correct.
And these builders have to know some of those nuances in building in those some areas, correct?
That is correct, because also in building a home, it's not just the client that's going to make some selections, that the community, the homeowners association, everything has to be approved. You know, you have deed restrictions that have to be adhered to. And like you said, historical properties, you know, I'm not going to mention any properties, but there is one in the Villages that did sell for over $2 million, and the property can't be built on because there's historical property on there.
Oh, wow.
my.
So that homeowner who thought they were going to build a home on that lot, there's a structure there that cannot be removed.
Wow.
Oh my, that happened. And actually, we had an occurrence like that happen in our office, and we remedied it. But it was same thing. They bought it in historic Heights area, and the builder's going to raise it. And guess what? Can't.
No can do.
No
Yeah,
can
because
do.
once it's designated as a historical mark, I guess, you have to abide by all those codes, conditions, and the original condition of the property, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. And whether it was, you know, it boggles my mind because whether it was disclosed or not, you know, unfortunately, someone now owns that property that nothing can be done with it.
Wow.
$2 million. Bye-bye.
Well, you know, and also, you know, one of the things is, you know, we talk a lot about custom home builders. What's also the difference between, let's say, a custom home builder that we see, quote unquote, inside the loop or inside Memorial versus some of these custom homes that you see in some of these master plan communities? You know, a lot of times you see these master plan communities with these estate sections, right? are those considered nowadays custom homes, or are they more like, larger spec homes with some custom amenities to them?
In these master planned areas where they have like estate sections and gated sections, a lot of times there are designated builders for those neighborhoods. You have to select a builder in that neighborhood that's been pre-approved. A lot of those homes are spec homes that you can customize. A lot of the big homes are custom homes.
Right, but yeah, and a lot of them
I'm
are.
sorry, I drew a blank.
No
I
problem.
was looking out the window. I saw chicken.
That is too funny.
12 floor chickens.
We just lost our producer too.
Exactly.
Wow.
They're cracking up.
Exactly.
That was awesome.
No, but
Sorry.
but one of the things you mentioned right there is they have an assigned builder, and this is really why I want our listeners to hear is, there's a big difference between going out there and selecting one from 500 custom home builders versus having a selected, 4 or 5 in the master plan community. There's nothing wrong with it, by the way.
No, not at all.
Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But, a custom home from my perspective, the way it is, it's, from the architectural diagrams and the planning and from every nuance associated, that to me is what a custom home is.
That is correct. A custom home, from day one, you select your build area, your neighborhood, you select your builder, your architect. Everybody's a family for the next year,
right?
And you build that house exactly to your specifications. That's a true custom.
What I found often true is that a lot of people are linear thinkers, and they don't really have the capability of envisioning what it is. Some people think in 3D. I think in 3D a lot, and I know some other people are very creative and can do that, but a lot are not that way. How do you get them to get a good concept, and how do you keep them from doing things that are like crazy? Because I looked at a very expensive house the other day that was built very specifically for somebody, and it was like, this house is going to be tough to sell.
Right. You try to guide your clients to do, first off, even if you're building a custom home, most of the times, 9 times out of 10, it's not your forever home.
Right.
Because, it's not like the old days where we lived somewhere for 40 years. So you have to keep in mind your resale and not to do anything that's really unusually out of the ordinary.
And and you mentioned for resale right there, one of the things, chicken's flying by again. I'm just joking. But you mentioned for resale, that is important because I think I was reading this the other day. The average individual is now staying in their home for less than 7 years.
Correct.
Whereas from the generation of my parents and probably older than that, you're absolutely right. They were staying in their homes 30, 40, retiring in their homes,
sure.
right? And back then, a custom home for my granddad built his home. Literally, he built his home. So he had a vested interest in staying there for the long term. Nowadays, you really don't. You see a lot of times individuals are building their own custom homes, but they also have that eye on what can I resell it for in the future.
That's correct, and not to overbuild, for your area, or the community that you're building in. Stay within the community price range.
Right.
That's really important when you're building. It's really important, too, when you're building, and I don't know if we should bring this up, but, you have your budget.
Right.
Have your budget set.
Oh,
That's
yes.
so incredibly important because every little change that you make, everything that you do to go back to the drawing board with your architect, hits that bottom line.
Well, and I'm going, we do a lot of construction loans for individuals that are building their own home. Mm-hmm. And I sit down and have this conversation with everybody because you mentioned budgeting. Is one of the biggest things they leave out is they try to go in and they're very cost conscious and I want to build it for this price, and they have a built-in contingency. Let's say a 10% contingency. I can't tell you how often 10% is not enough of a contingency.
No,
because
it's
once
not.
that home's being built, generally they'll walk in and say, I should have put in the travertine instead of going with XYZ, or I should have done this, or I want to actually have a larger room, or and so what ends up happening is that 10% contingency on $1 million home ends up needing to really be 25% contingency.
It's like the husband goes to the wife and goes, we ought to move that wall. How much could that possibly cost?
Well, and I think it's really important to understand when you're building a house, it's not just the stuff that you see.
Right.
It's not just the floors and the sink and the chandeliers. You've got to remember all the behind the walls, all the wiring, all the plumbing, all of those things that you don't even get to enjoy after the home is built. It's
Correct.
It's not just your decor selections.
Right. And and that's why I was saying, when you say going with a budget, also going with a reasonable and a knowledgeable budget, because The one thing is if you try to do something too much on the cheap, it'll end up being a lot more expensive by having to change it in the future. You see it all the time. I need to move this wall, as you mentioned. Moving a wall is not as simple during the construction process. If you already have all the diagrams made up and all the wiring going, you can't change it that easy. We're up against a break right now, aren't we?
Already.
Time flies when you're having fun.
So
we're
going
to take a break right now. So, and when the chickens are flying by as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I've got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got the string around my finger. What a world, what a life, I'm in love.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And we are back.
I'm waiting to hear that Down Under ad.
I know. We'll
know
probably
Brett,
hear that here pretty
Brett
soon.
recorded. I think he's listening this morning. So as a shout out to Brett, he's one of our new sponsors. We're absolutely delighted
With
to have
Down
him with
Under
us.
Pools
Down
and
Under
Decks.
Pools and Decks.
Brett, that one's for you.
Anyway, on with us today is a very dear friend of mine. We've known each other for probably 5 or 6 years. She's very active in the real estate community, great volunteer, runs 4 offices for Intero, and it's Katie Maxwell. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here.
And
Well, it's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
the politeness is over now.
Yeah, thank you. I want to mention that they are in tuxedos as well, and I know we're on radio, but they are. They're suited up. It's pretty fun.
It's for the pictures afterwards. And
That is correct.
I
and I've got a tuxedo.
It's all
believe
for
it
the
or not,
guest
I also
experience.
have a
Oh, he
tuxedo
does?
on, yes.
Well,
He has
right
a
there,
tuxedo
yes.
shirt.
He's got
Tuxes and tennis shoes. Yes.
that's a
I do
great
wear
thing.
tennis shoes with my tux.
So anyway, Katie, today we're talking about working with custom home builders and builders in general and things like that. And again, the question I always like to ask is taking people from the inception that, hey, I'd like to build a custom home for myself. Where do I start? Where do you take them from there?
I think a lot of, I know my agents, the ones that even have clients who want a custom home, they're finding a lot of custom features in some of the builders that you wouldn't consider necessarily a custom home builder, because they're really changing their models. So builders like Darling or Coventry, they're offering a product that's so incredibly nice now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. With so many different features that you can add, it helps a lot. And then you've got your builders like we talked about before in the Heights, and just so many, just check qualifications if it's a smaller builder. Ask them for some references for some other homes that they've built so they can walk them, because that's always an interesting thing.
Very important to get some honest reference and things like that. And of course, Ashley Bowles could not be here today because he had an inspection, but he's a great inspector, and he does a lot of new home inspections, and some of the stuff that's uncovered in those preliminary before they pour the slab and stuff. Do you always make sure that they have an inspector do on a new construction?
Absolutely. Regardless of if it's a tract home builder or a custom home builder, you, in my opinion, definitely need to get an inspector out there, because not that you can't trust anyone. You can, but
people
liability.
are throwing them up very quickly right now, and mistakes happen, and they're just human beings. And so I've looked at some photographs recently of some things that Ashley had found in some inspections, and it was pretty frightening because they're about to pour the concrete. And it was a post-tension slab, which is where they put the tension on the cables after it's poured. And it would have crushed the plumbing if they'd gone ahead and tightened it. And then, tears in the visqueen were the moisture barrier. There's a lot of stuff to look for. And it's just like life. If you have a great foundation, you can build a great house.
Right.
If you don't start off with a good foundation, it's not going to work.
I had that happen when I've been in the business for 13 years, and about 2 years in,
Were you
a
like
younger
12
couple.
at the time?
Yes, I was 13 and a half. It was a good time in my life.
She was on one of those programs where she got out of school half a day.
Oh, Renee, that only made
Started
you
getting her
18 when you were
license.
babysitting
Yeah,
then.
I had my hardship license. I drove a red plastic car. Anyway, a younger couple purchased a home for me, and the foundation was bad. And then over the next year, the plumbing cracked underneath. And believe it or not, sewage can seep through concrete.
It can. It's porous.
It takes a while,
Right.
but it can. So.
And that's a good thing. My first home that I bought, and I won't say which builder it was with, because I'm not going to say anything good about the actual, nothing bad about the builder, but the home. By not getting an inspection at the very beginning, we built it from the ground up. A couple years into it, all of a sudden, we started getting these huge cracks in in the seams of where my brick was. Well, it ends up that during the building process, they forgot to put the hurricane clips on. And so without having those hurricane clips on, the home from the very top started separating a little bit. And so, it's one of those things is if I had had an inspector, and I was a first-time home buyer, this is, 12 years ago, no, probably longer than that, probably 15, 16 years ago. If I had a home inspection from the very beginning of that process, that was something that would have been caught, and that would have avoided me a costly repair associated with the home 6 years into it. So, I tell everybody all the time is make sure that you definitely get a home inspection. Make sure that you also, as you mentioned, check those references, check a lot of what's going on. Make sure that they have a good reference amount out there. Maybe even walk some other homes of theirs. Talk to other homeowners on your smaller custom home builders. On your larger ones, you can also do the same thing. You can go to the sales offices and find out, who's recently bought. Can I speak with somebody who's recently had the experience on building with you? I think that's very important, to sort of go through those processes right there.
Renee made a great point over here about chickens.
Chicken coop building is big in Houston too.
I'm kidding. But she made a great point, and it includes one of our sponsors that it's really important on a new home, just for like the stuff that you were talking about, to have a good home warranty. Because I was going to ask that, and I know we have a caller, so I don't want to deviate too much, but take a call here real quickly. But I was going to ask, as a newbie, so to speak, to that aspect of it, if you build a new home, do you see, like with an older home, the problems are kind of known, so to speak. Is it much of an issue at all? Do you see that come up with like the issue you were talking about, Chris? Is that something that a new home buyer needs to be more aware of?
I think you have to, no matter what you do, buying a home, period, and Renee and Katie will probably be better to talk about this, but I can speak from a homeowner's perspective is, if I had to do it over again, and I've done this and everything going forward, I will always have a home inspection, and I will always do my due diligence around the builder itself.
Absolutely.
Because I don't care what name brand they are, and I don't care how good the builder is. You need to protect yourself.
It's just one of those things where what you don't know can hurt you.
Also, the warranty, when you're with a custom home builder and you're not in the neighborhood where they're standing there with a general contractor running around, that 210 warranty that comes with like a custom home, it can sometimes be not as easy to get somebody to come back to fix a cracked tile the first year. So just be aware that that's something to get through too.
Well, we have a caller on the line.
We do have a caller on the line. We have Amber calling in. Amber, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
This voice sounds very familiar. It sounds as though she may work in my office.
Hey, well, that's always good.
My question that I would like to kind of pose is what's a good way to get people to work with you as an agent, with so many of these home builders having a salesperson in their model or a designated salesperson? How can we, as agents, convince the home buyer or potential, builder that it's a good idea to work with us versus just working with a salesperson in their office?
It's a good question, Amber.
Well, I hope you have a good answer to go with that.
Let me answer you now.
I don't know. That's a great question.
I really think that proving our value through being an experienced agent and knowing what you can bring to the table and believing in yourself that the commission that you're going to earn is well worth it, because we do bring so much value as agents to a potential buyer or a builder, whether it be negotiations or, again, urging them to get the home inspection or whatever the case may be. It's uberly important to have an agent on your side, especially when the commission taken away will be paid for by the builder in the first place. It's very important for us to be a part of that.
I would say, talking to the consumer too. This is Joe and Amber. I think always, no matter what it is, if you're providing value and the customer understands what your value is, if the value is greater than the cost to them, they'll choose to do it. Right. That's always the bottom line. And so I know from a consumer standpoint, like we talked about just a second ago with Ashley Bowles, AB Bowles Home Inspection. He does a lot of new home inspections, and a lot of the builders will say, we have our inspectors to look at the house. It's so great to have that third party objective insight into that home inspection. It's so worth that value. And I would say, just from a consumer standpoint, not being a realtor, that's a big part of your value as well, is having that third party, outside from the builder, objective person that's, for lack of better words, arguing on your behalf. So
well, you
I
need
would
to have
say
an
that'd be
advocate.
critical.
You need to have an advocate in a transaction, and then the thing is, and a lot of agents just go take someone to the sales office. They sell the home, and then the agent never shows up to the closing. But a good agent is going to show up for the inspection. Is going to show up for the walkthroughs. When they're having changes, when they're having meetings with the builders, that agent ought to be there as an advocate.
If the builder's staring at you like with hatred in their eyes, then you did a good job.
Yeah, and let me tell you, as you mentioned, it's also important to interview your agent as well. We talk about finding a good custom home builder to build with. I'm a big advocate, and I tell this all the time, I tell everybody is you want to use a professional in the industry. I don't believe going into a real estate transaction without a realtor at your side in any type, whether it be, I don't believe in the for sale by owner. I don't believe in going into a real estate transaction with a new home builder or an existing home builder. None of that. I think you have to have a real estate agent who represents you. And if you have that agent who represents you well, as you mentioned right there, let's face it, you want to have somebody on your side of the transaction. When you are dealing with a new home builder, their agents are representing their side of the transaction.
And oftentimes they're not even agents. They don't have an agency relationship.
That is correct. They're salespeople.
They're salespeople. They're
are
employees.
representing their side. That is correct. So their loyalty lies on representing their company. And so you want to have somebody on your side to represent you, to make sure you're not over-improving your home, to make sure that what you are putting into it is going to have comparable value, to make sure that you're buying in an area that has, if you're only going to be there for a shorter period of time, that you can find that financing that can actually be an objective person to say, look at this person versus this person. So there's a lot of different things, as we mentioned out there, and I think it's a very good question.
Yeah. We're coming to get a break again, and I want to make sure that Katie gets a chance to let people know how they can contact you, your website, your phone number.
Oh, thanks, Rob.
Absolutely.
You can contact me at Intero Real Estate Services. You can reach me at 713-568-2389. That's our office line, and all of our amazing agents like Amber, and thank you for calling in, Amber.
Do me a favor, say that one more time a little bit slower so that anybody out there.
I talk fast, so it's like micro machines. Again, Katie Maxwell, phone number 713-568-2389 or interohouston.com.
Yeah, she's got some great agents over there.
Yes, absolutely. I know several of them.
I
as
hear
well.
the music in the background.
It is going right now, which means we're up against a break again. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I won't dance, don't ask me. I won't dance, don't ask me. I won't dance, madam, with you. My heart won't let my feet do things that they should do.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And we are back. We need to have Sigmund follow us around. I love that. And we are back.
Well, I think for the next Rat Pack event, I would love to have them, as people walk into the doors, have them announce it. Here's Katie Maxwell.
We should do? We should have him in, and we should be offering a service like he will record your next voicemail.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
Awesome.
That'd be really good.
That's a great idea.
Not a bad one, right?
I would totally pay for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would insist on that.
I would agree.
Well, our next guest is a very dear friend of mine, and
Yes.
I've known Michael Roddy for a very long time. He is with Remax Memorial. Is that Town and Country?
Remax Memorial Town and Country. You are right.
Okay, they blended all those.
You got them both right.
Well, it was two Remaxes, and they combined an office. And
That's correct.
A while back. So and Michael has worked a lot with custom home builders and has gone out and found them lots and listed the home after they built the home and things like that. So. He was perfect for this show. It was designed for him.
It was designed for him.
Welcome to the show, Michael.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me up. Chris, I don't know
Yes.
if you remember, but I was here once before, even though I only got to talk for just a short amount of time.
Yes.
Rob, you know a little bit about that.
Well, that was when Lisa Kornhauser was on that
Yes,
same day.
yes,
that is
exactly.
We had that cast of 1,000. They were lined up against the wall.
So we have two two-timers in the
Yeah,
studio today.
Two-timers, absolutely.
He didn't want to be left out. That's true.
Even though you could call me just a time and a half. Really.
A time and a half. Okay, you're a time and a halfer.
Oh, my. So, we're going to kind of ask the same kind of questions. I know you work a lot with custom builders, and right now, lots are in short supply right now.
Lots are in very short supply, and we're seeing the value of the dirt, especially when you get closer into town, especially inside of Loop 610, is just going up tremendously. But just finding, Rob, you're absolutely right, just finding the lot itself is a chore, and it is something that a realtor absolutely can assist with, and it can take some time. Timing is everything. So if the timing is right, there is a possibility that a lot can be found in a short amount of time. However, I always recommend that they be prepared to wait for some time in order for us to find the lot, be able to negotiate, and then interview a builder. And this is something that both the other guests brought up today that I think is so important, where a realtor is key, is they can introduce you to a number of builders. And I would recommend visiting with 2 or 3 builders, I would say 2 at least, and see how the personalities mesh, because you are literally going to be working with that person for anywhere from 8 months to a year, sometimes more.
Right.
So it is almost like a marriage, and the personalities have to be able to work together.
And not only that, you also have to have a clear idea and understanding going into it of what you're looking for. And I think also, we talked about this in some past shows. It's important also to know within your marriage, to go in there and have
Exactly.
a clear line of communication between that as well. Because, when you're building your own home, things happen, changes happen, personalities happen. And so you have to be able to make sure you have a clear line of communication, understanding, and building that. We joke around.
And if it's a man and wife, make sure that the woman gets the final say so. I mean, that makes it so much easier.
It really does, doesn't it?
Dear,
It does.
the best
Yes,
answer
dear.
to that.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny.
Exactly.
There's a sign that hangs in my kitchen that was given to my husband from my father, and it says the 2 smartest words a man can say is "yes, dear."
Yeah, I never learned that. But
Well,
I'm
I
going to
agree.
write
I've
that
got the
down.
last word in my house. I always have the last word in my house. Yes, whatever you like, dear.
Communication also between the builder or the building supervisor and the customer, meaning the client, our clients, is key. And if those clients happen to be in a position with their careers, et cetera, where they travel a lot, we act as the go-between. We can talk with the builder for them. We know what the goals are. We're experienced in this field, and it just assists in making that communication and everything run smoothly.
And a lot of times what people don't realize is, and I don't care which home builder it is, whether it be a custom home builder and or a track home builder, is a lot of times you're dealing with you're going to select the builder, right? And you see that owner, that salesperson, et cetera, but you're oftentimes working, especially on a custom home, with the supervisor, superintendent, or some of the trades. How do you go about looking and seeing and selecting a builder that might, to know how they select those trades? What are some of the questions you would ask?
Usually everyone up here today has been in this business for a while. And after you've been in this business for a while, you have come to work with these builders in the past. You get to know not only the builder or the company, you get to know a lot of their building supervisors, the persons who you're going to be speaking with literally on a weekly basis. And once you get to know them and what their personalities are like, actually most of them enjoy working with a good, experienced realtor. We know the lingo, we know what they're looking for, we know the time frames, and communication, I can't stress that enough. Communication is just key.
Yep.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, it really is, and being able to, I always like to have that dialogue before you start.
Right.
And then I know, Michael, I know you sit them down and say, this is what's going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And then when it does happen, and they'll go, oh, yeah, Michael told us that was going to happen.
There's very few surprises. You're exactly right.
There's going to be surprises.
There's going to be surprises.
And that actually is what you're preparing for. There's going to be a surprise.
But the more that you can cut those surprises down, the better it is. I call them hurdles.
Right.
The more hurdles that you can get out of the way ahead of time, and I know it's like that in your business, in your industry. The more hurdles you can get past in the beginning, the better it is all the way around, and give the client a great experience. There's stories that we hear about people who get into building a home, whether that's with a production builder or with a custom builder, and some of them have these stories that just make you cringe when you hear them. And you want to try to eliminate as much of that and make it a very good experience for them all the way around.
And on the custom home side, the other thing I'm going to tell everybody is, also look at this, the architects that you're going to be working with. I mean, it's important because a lot of times if you're not working with an architectural firm that is flexible and can provide you with that same type of service, that can be a little difficult because then the builder's waiting on the architectural diagrams to come back, the architects, they need to make a change, et cetera, et cetera. So that's also a very important part of that process on some of those custom homes.
Very good point. Absolutely. Joe, I think you had a
Joe's
question.
over here percolating. I think he's going to explode.
No, I'm good.
There went that chicken.
Chicken. No, I was going to say, to a couple that comes in, sits down, says, Michael, we're looking at moving. We want to upgrade a little bit, and we're not decided on new home versus an existing property. We're leaning towards new, but we've never done the new home process. We've never, had a home built. What would be, kind of the first guidance or counseling that you would give?
Well, one of the key things is what part of the city would they like to be in, and if they don't mind a commute and they would like to go a little bit further out, there's a number of choices for new homes. Closer in, as we talked about just a few moments ago, finding the lots and being able to find them a place to build, the timing may not work out for them in that regard. So if they're looking at new versus resale, agents really, you sit down and you talk with them about what are their goals, meaning where are they going to be working? Do they mind commuting? The other one is, I've had people here lately tell me, I want everything within a 3 to 5 mile radius. I don't want to have to go out of that radius.
These are my people.
So there's a number of things that you ask. And just through a conversation, if you go out for coffee or go out for a bite to eat, just through conversation with them, you can usually find out what may work best for them. And a new home is not always best. Some young couples, and this was recently, that had talked to me about new communities but much further out. We wound up working with them, and both of them wound up buying in the Meyerland area in a mature community. They knew what they were getting. Both of them, I've talked with both recently. They absolutely love being over there, where both came to me initially and said, we would like to look at new construction. We did look at new construction, and then we compared that with a more mature community closer in, and they found out that fit their needs best.
Do you ever see, or is it ever a concern if a person says, well, the values of increase are known in this area, but this is a new area, new construction, it's unknown. Do you ever see any issues where a person is looking at the home purchase as part of their long-term investment strategy and saying, hey, this part of town or this community has a known growth rate or predictable, at least relatively predictable, this is new, and that's a concern. Does that ever come up?
It does, and you're absolutely right. And this is something that I would bring up with the mature communities, as you just said. You can pretty much look at the past trends and give them a good idea of where that community may be going, the percentage of appreciation if they plan on being there over the next 5, 7, or 10 years. In a brand new community, especially the ones that are further out, you really don't have a track record to go on. You don't know what that neighborhood is actually going to do 5 years from now. So that could be a bit of a compromise, depending on, like we said earlier, which way do they want to go? Do they absolutely want brand new construction, or would they be okay maybe a little closer in a more mature neighborhood where we can give them the track record of that neighborhood and of that community, and they know what they're getting, as opposed to having a new home and not necessarily knowing what's going to be going on in and around that neighborhood.
Now, I know you love to work in West University, and oftentimes people are looking for a lot to buy a new home or to build a new home. What's the first thing you counsel them? Probably patience is probably the first thing.
Patience. You are absolutely right.
I thought you were going to go, New England on us and say, forget about it.
No, it's not impossible. It's not an impossible task, but patience is key. And sometimes they have to make a compromise in leasing for a period of time until you can locate something for them. But 100% correct. Patience is key.
And I know Westview is it's already a built-out community. It's well located. A lot of medical, a lot of professors. I mean, that type of people. That's your demographics. And they say, "This is where I want to be," and you have to go, "Not there yet."
Exactly.
We're running against a break again, Chris.
We are, but Michael, how can we reach you if you don't mind?
You can reach me on my direct line number, 204-1377. 24 hours a day.
7 days a week.
Wow. I'm calling it
2 in the morning. Test him out, folks.
2 or 3 in the morning.
I didn't say I would answer personally. You may have to leave a voicemail, but it works 24 hours a day. 822-204-1377.
That sounds great. You know, time flies when you're having fun. We have one last segment coming up in which we do our open mic segment in which we get to talk everything.
We're gonna get Remington to start talking
and the
that
very
time.
first thing we're going to talk about when we come back is Renee's going to talk about what came first, the chicken or the egg. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Make it all complete, and that's the recipe for making love. And if you've made it right, you'll know it. It's not like anything you've made before. And if you've made it wrong, you'll know it, 'cause it won't keep you coming back for more.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And we are back. And, you know,
We got to do the best of the breaks.
We
had to have
always
an
do.
album.
I would absolutely agree, you know, and Renee does have 15 minutes to explain the chicken and the egg, by the way.
It would just be a walk through the life of an ADHD person.
Everyone in here.
Yeah.
That's why we're in real estate.
No, actually, I think that's the reverse. I think I tell all agents, the new agents, I said, look, if you're not ADD now, you will be.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. But I don't know how you
ADD
came out.
is not a disorder; it's a gift.
Yeah, I don't know how you
say.
came out with chicken. We're 12 floors up, and you came out with chicken.
It's a high flying chicken.
It was
So-
a high
It was a
flying
very high-flying chicken.
Turbo chicken.
Yes. And you know what was funny about that was, well, you know, we talked about between the breaks. Prior to the show, we were having a great conversation about a picture of a rhinoceros, you know, that I took over at Walt Disney World, and that spiraled out of control. And so whenever we were doing the interview, you were still thinking about that.
was.
And so instead of saying rhinoceros flying out, you figured chicken was the better
Well, that
anomaly.
often happens to me when I'm thinking rhinoceros. Chicken comes out. Just saying.
I don't know where that was going. But
I have no idea. Let's get back to the subject.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Wow. Well, you know, one of the things I was going to ask, and Renee, you're sitting over there. I wanted to ask you that question. I have a lot, and you work in this area as well a lot, dealing with the historical districts one more time. A lot of times also, it's not only about understanding buying within the historical district, but also those historical districts have their own type of architects or diagrams or requirements in order to improve or enhance. And that can be quite a task to have to deal with a lot of times.
That is correct. And you first of all, you need to find out, like there's specific areas in the Heights where you cannot take the homes down. You can't tear them down. You can be it's very specific on what you can remodel or doing additions to them.
Right.
So, you need to check into that when you're purchasing and get the guidelines. And if you do hire contractors, they need to be very well versed in what can be done to those properties.
And that's a great point to also, because it's not a required disclosure. And that's what occurred in our office, is that somebody bought this property with the intent of raising the home, building new, and then found out it was historic. The seller actually knew it was in a historic district, never said anything, but it's not required.
It's not a required
Not incumbent
disclosure,
on
right.
the seller to disclose that information.
And what Renee was saying was important because, I've got a client right now who he's up against the deadline to put in his remodel request to the commission, the historical commission, on top of his HOA and all the other stuff right there. And one of the questions they're asking is, who are your contractors and their license, and are you going to meet the code requirements and the color requirements, and down to the minute detail on this historical property.
Correct.
So it really, as you talked about right there, has a lot more to it than just going out there and finding anybody to work with it. You have to have specifics.
You do have to have specifics, and like Rob said, I'm that surprises me that a seller wouldn't disclose, but it also surprises me that, and not to talk down, but the realtors wouldn't know that a property was in a historical district.
It is incumbent on realtors. If you're going to represent yourself as an expert, you should be an expert. And it's not that it's easy to find out. You can go on the city's website. You can see the historic district where they're mapped out. you can. There's ways to find out. There's no reason for them not to know that.
Right. And generally speaking, there's a notation out there, not only on the website, but a lot of times you'll actually see in the actual yards themselves. I mean, I've been to several homes in which they've got those markers in there.
Absolutely.
And then since our topic is builders, I'll give you a very short story on what happened in West U, where a couple across the street from where my clients were building, they had a builder come in from the Woodlands. Very good builder. However, that builder was not familiar with the city code of West University Place, and it wound up actually stopping their construction for 3 months because the builder made a mistake not being familiar with building in West U versus building in the Woodlands.
Yep.
You get an expert. I mean, and that's
to get an expert.
I talk with, I always see those signs that says area specialist, and it's, we're in Houston, but it's a 409 area code. They're probably not experts in the area.
Right.
Exactly. And working with a realtor experienced in a particular area and then a builder experienced in a particular area, you can avoid, like we talked about earlier, you can avoid a lot of those hurdles.
Exactly. And I'm all for, individuals growing their businesses and moving out, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to something that's so important, like you mentioned, building a specific custom home in the West U area, you have to find somebody who is either going to take the time to understand if they're not building in that area, or find out who they can consult with to make sure you don't go through those mistakes, because those can be very timely and costly mistakes. I've known of individuals who have to raise their homes. I mean, they've gone through a process, they're 50% built, and then it ends up something major happened, whether it be an encroachment or whether it be, because we see this all the time, it encroaches over a percentage of the property, or they didn't get the survey correct, or whatever it might be, and that has to be raised down and started over again. Those are costly mistakes.
Extremely costly, not only in money, but time, frustration.
Yep.
Exactly right.
And when you have an interim loan, time is money.
Can I mention something?
No, you can't talk
Mike,
anymore, Kate.
thanks.
You're done.
I'm back. We had a client from my office who loves the West U area, but they really love uberly modern homes. And something in some more traditional areas
That's
of
a
Houston.
technical term, uberly modern.
Uberly modern is something I use a lot. A big white box is what I mean, basically.
Katie is bilingual, by the way.
Yes, yeah, with my own language I created. Anyway, if you're in a traditional neighborhood, respect the people around you for the most part, because you're going to go through so many hurdles trying to come in and be the crazy thinker with the really modern home, because they're not going to approve it probably, and it's going to be a waste of your time. And if nothing else, my clients were really great, and they understood that, and they didn't want the neighbors to come chasing them down with burning sticks later on, because they had the one white box in the
Right, it's
neighborhood.
like the purple house that used to be in Tanglewood.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like, just
With
don't.
Purple
I wouldn't
House?
even go doing it, because the neighbors they moved there for a certain reason, and so now they just decided to build a very traditional West U home on the exterior, and the inside's going to be incredibly modern. And I really
think
a
the
lot of
term
people
is
want that.
uber modern.
Yeah,
modern.
Uber modern.
uberly.
Uberly,
extra
sorry,
urban-
yes,
urban-
uberly
Wait,
modern.
that's uberly modern. So the inside, I think it'll really have a great resale value too, because you'll walk in and it will be completely different than what anyone else sees. But just understand what you're moving into, and that's the area that you want to be in, and don't try to throw a snag into the into the whole place.
Now, Katie, we have two queens in the room, but we also have a princess in the room,
yes.
don't we?
We do.
Don't we?
This is my miniature child is sitting on my lap. I know you can't see us, but you want to say hello?
Hello.
She's a miniature child.
What do you think? Is this your first time being on the
She's
radio?
actually 17.
How do you like it?
No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
How old are you?
7.
7. And you like being on the radio?
Yes.
You can honestly say now you've been on the radio at
You're-
7 years
You're a
old.
radio star.
You're a
Yes.
radio star.
A rock star.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So, future real estate?
No. Just kidding. Yes.
Oh, my.
Absolutely.
We love real estate, right?
We do. It's our favorite. And she's going to know all about it by the time she's a grown up. It's been happening since she was born
Oh.
in her life.
I
We
think
know-
she
we are
learned
a
a lot
family
up
show.
here, being up here with us today.
Yes.
So
So
I'm
next
not
time-
coming back up here again.
Well, Mom, Rob said on the air that
She's just going to wonder what chickens have to
Yeah,
do with it.
Mommy,
we
why
are
were they
wondering the
talking
same
about
thing.
chickens so much?
So
So here's another question for you from a consumer side. Now we're looking at, do you think there's an advantage, or does this make sense? If I'm building we decide to go that route, does it make?
And Kim has been talking about.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
she might be.
But I like when he said if we're building.
No,
that means he's
when I'm building.
Yeah, when I'm building.
Yes.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
means we're heading in that right direction.
Like Renee said, yes, dear.
Yeah. So if I'm building, believing that I always would work with a realtor, and that's what we encourage on the show and definitely advocate for that, does it make sense now? Like if we're going for a resale property in a known area like we talked about with Westview, it makes so much sense. To me, it makes so much sense to get somebody who specializes in that area in Westview because of all the peculiarities of that area and that type of thing. So if I'm choosing a realtor, does it make sense in those kind of situations, if I'm looking at resale, maybe to be more focused on somebody who is an expert in a specific area versus if I'm going to build, if I'm finding someone who's more specializes in new home sales?
I personally think that it's incredibly important to go to someone in the same area that you're trying to buy. I mean, if you get somebody that's from far out, they're not, especially here in the city, we have such amazing little areas, and the people that sell those and live in those are going to know them best and know the community and the history behind it. And in my opinion, you can't, and no, I'm going to hear about this when I get to the office, but if you have somebody that's coming in from 40 miles out and they don't even know that some of the streets are one way, and I did that when I first moved to the city, like showing somebody $1 million house, and I'm traveling down like near the village and going the wrong way, and they're like, what are you doing? And it's not smart, and it's not really a professional thing to do.
And that's also true in the Memorial Villages where you work a lot, Renee, is that, those villages are, they're a municipality, and they each have their own little rules and
That's right. You have to know every police officer in the village,
Yeah,
too.
and don't speed in the villages, Westview or Bel Air.
Especially on Gaylord on that backside right there. They will get you.
Yeah. You saw that on Facebook. I did. I got popped. Yeah.
Well, that's where Hedwig Village, that's where their station is.
I
right
used to have my
street.
office right there in Hedwig Village, and let me tell you, there wasn't a day that wouldn't go by that I would not almost be stopped. We actually got stopped one time. So
Well, let me just get back to that question real quick. My little closing statement here. No, seriously. I think that yes, finding a realtor that is specific for an area is very important. But I also think that there are very, very seasoned agents, realtors, that can represent you wherever you go, whatever neighborhood you go to, because they're knowledgeable. They're going to do the research. They're going to know what to do. They're going to know what to look for. They're going to know who to call. It's
That's very true.
And I would agree.
Yeah. If a client, 2 weeks ago, new construction in Katy, I was in Cinco, and 3 weeks ago, out in the Woodlands with my clients. So I think that if you are a strong agent, you can represent your clients wherever they're going.
Renee,
Finding somebody that's been in the business for longer than,
and we'll go the extra mile and work your.
And Renee, we
chicken
didn't
off.
ask you this a while ago. How can we reach you, by the way?
Oh, thank you. You can reach me at my office, which is 713-647-8278. Renee Davy Oakum, Brookshire Hathaway Home Services, Anderson Properties.
Well,
How about you real quick, Michael? Did we give you out your number?
We did, and I'm happy to do it one more time. 832-204-1377, 24 hours a day.
That is correct. It's 24 hours. Teresa Candy always sends us a really good saying. I want to get this one done. It's really good. It says, with God, there is no limit to what you can do. There is no obstacle you can't overcome. Through him, all things are possible. And I think that's really true. Teresa, we really appreciate that one, as she always does. But things are always possible. And when you're going through and you're building and you're using the great individuals we have in this room right here for different opportunities and needs you have on building that home, you're never going to go wrong. If you find, and I agree with what Renee said, it's no different than what I tell everybody. People say, do you focus in a certain area? Well, in the mortgage side, no. I mean, I'm all over the place. But as Renee knows, she'll still say, hey, I'm out in Katy, and I know the Katy area, and so a lot of times also individuals will know individuals who to use or who they can refer to say, can we get this taken care of? So I think it's all good stuff. Until next time, I guess they're telling us we got to be going. Exactly. I was looking for the countdown.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Who's
Until
Frank,
next week.
who's Sammy, who's Dean, and who's the other guy?
Chris is Frank,
I'm
he's
Dean.
Dean, and I'm Sammy.
Yes. That's right. Yeah.
So tune in to the really big show every Saturday at 9 a.m. right here on 100.7 The Word, KKHT.